Hello and welcome. I'm the Rambling Director. This is my new set, and it's probably pretty echoey in here. Me and my wife recently moved into a new place, and so yeah, we're still setting up. This 1970s wood paneling is not going to stay very long, but this is where I'm at right now. If I want to go ahead and keep making videos, we're going to have to just truck along and you know, just allow a few inconveniences here and there. Overall, really smooth process moving in. Everything's going really well. We just need to still paint and do some improvements, get some new lights up. But yeah, so today we are talking about the third in the Kenneth Branagh Hercule Poirot series, A Haunting in Venice. This one is based on The Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. But I actually think that the name A Haunting in Venice is a way better title, I gotta say. I know that, you know, the others kept the names of their respective books. However, Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, Haunting in Venice, it has more of like a series vibe to it. If the names are like, if the next movie was like the ABC Murders, it would not flow as nicely in a box set, for instance. This film I thought was really, really great. I've said before in a few other reviews that I love Kenneth Branagh. He's one of my favorite actors currently working, and he is one of my favorite directors as well. And as far as directors who act in their own films, yeah, I mean, like, in my opinion, right up there with Orson Welles. I think he probably is like the modern Orson Welles, in my opinion. He doesn't get quite the same respect, doesn't quite the same admiration from film buffs, but I think there's something about his cinematography and the way he chooses to film certain types of scenes, the lighting, the set design, the costume design, the fact that he strikes this great balance between incredibly long takes where he allows the actors to be more theatrical. He, of course, comes from the stage, so he allows the actors to kind of breathe and live in a scene for a while before cutting. But then there's other scenes where he uses editing to tremendous effect. I think there are some directors who are so obsessed with doing a long take and proving, oh, look at me, I can pull off a long take, that they, you know, they don't really they don't really restrain themselves. It is the editing process, and when you limit yourself to be incapable of editing a movie or you know, cutting down a scene that needs to be cut down, then you're not taking advantage of film and what it can do. And Kenneth Branagh strikes a much better balance of that. I particularly love the editing in this particular film. There's a seance scene, and the editing is just so crisp, and the shot choices are so good. I can see some people saying it was pretentious, but I didn't think so. I thought it was really good. I should probably tell you what the plot of this movie was. Basically, Hercule Poirot, after the last movie, where he was very disenchanted, very kind of hurt by what love can do between people. I plan on doing a whole analysis of Death on the Nile. I think it's one of the best movies he's ever made, and I think it is the best adaptation of that story. And he is invited by Tina Fey's character, whose name is Ariadne Oliver. Ariadne is a great name. I think that's a Greek name, if I'm not mistaken. And she invites him to come and see this medium, who is played by Michelle Yeoh. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, look, you know, what can I say? I'm only human, okay? And she plays the medium Mrs. Reynolds, which is that's a mystery name if there ever was one, right? I mean, like, what next? The next movie, somebody's got to be named like Mrs. MacGuffin or something. And she is this unbelievable medium who is capable of doing all these crazy things, and she has all this inside knowledge. A woman whose daughter seemingly committed suicide by throwing herself off a balcony after becoming incredibly ill. And she thinks that this medium, or we're led to believe anyway, that this medium can contact her dead daughter, and maybe she can get some answers. And wouldn't you know it, the medium immediately starts saying that the daughter was murdered. And Poirot agrees. However, Poirot is in sort of a state of retirement. He doesn't really want to work another case, but he kind of feels the call to answer this one as the mystery develops. Eventually, Mrs. Yo is also murdered, and Poirot now must find out who murdered the medium who was about to expose a murderer. And really all he has to go off of is the medium giving the letter M. There is some just great dialogue in this. I mentioned in Death on the Nile that I really love a whodunit film that embraces the nature of whodunit films and just has things like Tina Fey saying, the illustrious medium. You know, I mean, that's the sort of, or like, the poor demented doctor. You know, like they talk in these very literary terms sometimes, and I really liked that. I thought it was quite cool. It's sort of like when Book in the last movie just reads everybody's character stats, you know, to establish. I love that sort of thing. You might say it's that it's a flaw in the film, but in this genre, that is kind of a trope that we've come to expect. Now, maybe you don't like that sort of trope, but I do, and I love whodunit films. So I think it's kind of cool to see these people interact with each other as though they were in a book from the 1920s or 30s. And the actors that Kenneth Branagh chooses for these films, he really knows that he's got to sell these characters with very minimal development because you don't have a lot of time. You have to keep the mystery rolling or the audience is going to lose track of things. And so he picks these actors who can very briefly in their short screen time, they can establish who they are and add to the bones of this material without needing to add a lot of dialogue. It's impressive. For instance, Jamie Dornan plays a war doctor who has PTSD, and his son is the one who has to take care of him. And he's feeling the awful pressure that he should be the one caring for his son, but his son is the one caring for him. And he feels the weight of what he did during the war. And Jamie Dornan, being the fantastic actor that he is able to get that across to you when he only has like one scene that is like he's directly in the spotlight. Everything else, he's very much at the peripheral or kind of a side character to somebody else's scene. But in just a couple scenes, you really get a sense of who this man is. And again, that's partially due to the great writing. The scripting in these films is excellent. The pacing of these films is excellent. It's partially due to Branagh, who understands this material and understands how to kind of pull it out like an accordion, like pull it out and let it breathe, because it doesn't need to be confined to a short story or a novella. It can open up and the characters can breathe a bit more, especially now we're in a more liberal time where these characters can say and do more than maybe they would have been allowed to get away with in Agatha Christie's day. And of course, partially it is due to the actors, who are all just wonderful. I'm not a Tina Fey fan. Can I say that? I don't know if that's a popular or unpopular opinion, but I'll just throw it out there. I don't like Tina Fey. I don't like her comedy. I don't really like her as an actor. So I was a little skeptical that she was going to be like the Book character in this. I didn't really care much for that idea, but she did fine. She's probably the one that I liked the least, though, and yeah, maybe it's because I didn't really care much for her acting, but on the same hand, I think objectively, I just think she was the weakest, especially when you put her beside a powerhouse like Kenneth Branagh, and they're acting all these scenes off of each other. She just has this very wooden quality to her that I just never could quite get behind. But Michelle Yeoh did a fantastic job as Mrs. Reynolds. I genuinely wanted to see more of her character, but at the same time, she was able to walk that fine line where she's supposed to be a character that sort of annoys you, and she does that, but you're still kind of curious, like, to see what she's thinking. Also, her two assistants were really interesting characters, and I really liked that there was this technological edge where her tricks were parlor tricks, but they were using electricity and radio signals and things that maybe for that time period we wouldn't have fully understood the capability. So your average everyday people coming to see this seance may not have been able to figure it out. But Poirot can, of course, because Poirot is, you know, that's Poirot's job. I especially like when he reveals how the parlor tricks are done, only to have Michelle Yeoh enter a trance and instantly start saying the daughter was murdered, and you get the idea. Poirot might agree with that. But he's also very distracted because he can't quite figure out how those tricks are done, and it's of course because there are a couple people in the crowd that are there who he's not estimating their motivations properly, and we figure out their motivations as we go forward. But that's part of the mystery, so I won't spoil it. Rowena Drake, the one throwing this party, is played by Riley Kelly, who you might know from Yellowstone. She was in the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes film. She played Mary Morstan in that. And I thought she played her role to absolute perfection. It's a juicy character, and I thought she took real advantage of what she could do. I really loved this moment where Poirot is looking for the basement to find where this noise is coming from, and everybody says there is no basement, and he walks down this hallway, and you get the idea he's going to go looking for the basement, but the perspective of the hall starts to shift, and it almost looks like a dolly zoom, and then you realize, actually, it's a door to look like an infinite hallway, almost like something in the Looney Tunes. And the way the perspective of the camera shifts to let you realize that is just super cool. It's sort of like all the camera tricks with the windows that Branagh pulled off in Death on the Nile. I really, really love his filmmaking, and I know a lot of people who do these sort of film reviews, they often forget to mention that. But the cinematography and the filmmaking is really important. And I know a lot of people say, well, the story is the most important part. Yeah, but if you can't tell the story in an interesting way, go home. And that's one of the things Branagh does so well. It's one of the reasons why he's one of my favorites. Is, I said this in the last review, but it's just so true. Everything he makes, even the things that fail, even the times when he makes something and it doesn't work, this man knows how to shoot things in a way that you cannot say his movies are visually boring. His movies are always stunning to look at, and the lighting in this movie, the way, the set design, the angles, the editing, it made me think, actually, although this is not truly a horror movie, and it does have elements of horror, but it's not a horror movie, it made me realize Kenneth Branagh really needs to shoot an outright horror movie, because the man could totally do it and make something classy like The Haunting. I'm talking about the original Haunting, not the remake with Catherine Zeta-Jones, not that one. The original. Something really classy and subtle like that. I think he could pull off doing that fantastically with very minimal special effects. Again, sort of like something like The Haunting. A major criticism is that Murder on the Orient Express had a great theme about Poirot believing the world had to be just so, and then learning that morality is not always black and white. Death on the Nile had a great theme where everybody was doing these things, whether they were good or bad, and it was every character was motivated by love. Lost love, potential love, forbidden love. I was really expecting a great theme for this one. And I guess there was a theme where Poirot is skeptical and he has lost his faith because he's seen too much evil in the world. And he even gives this great little speech where he's like, I want to believe that there's a God, because if there's a God, then we have justice. We have order. Everything needs to be just so, because we actively, we can't have good and evil and justice and injustice. None of it will ever be balanced if there is no God. I just can't believe there is when I see how little balance there is in the world. Which is kind of the natural conclusion of Murder on the Orient Express's motivation, his motivation in that. But you kind of know where it's going, that Poirot is going to realize that yes, there is something bigger than himself. Yes, there is a spiritual realm that he needs to accept. And although at the end he does kind of say, no, I didn't, it wasn't real because of XYZ, he then does kind of backtrack and go, but I did realize actually there are some things that are bigger and we do have to confront, and you know, that requires a level of faith. So we kind of knew where that was going, I think, a little too much. Because you've never seen a movie like this where the person isn't proven to that, yes, there is things bigger than this world. That being said, I just didn't think the other characters' motivations fit that as well as it does in the other two movies, where all of the characters in Murder on the Orient Express are great, morally gray characters. They're good and bad. All the characters in Death on the Nile are in love. This film, it's almost more like everybody either believes or doesn't believe in this psychic or doesn't believe in ghosts, and Poirot doesn't believe until literally the last minute that there is something. I think it is as good as the others. I just don't think that it was as tightly written in terms of its theme. But not every movie needs to have a theme, so maybe that's not important to you. But to me, it was. So take that for what it's worth. What would I give this film? I'd still give it a solid A, because it was a really fun movie. To edge it over to an A+ for me, it would have needed a strong carry-through theme that was something the audience could follow. And if there was a theme like that, I didn't catch it on the first viewing. So maybe on the second viewing I will, and I'll amend my statement. But for now, a solid A. The other two movies I think I gave A+. But this one, a solid A, and I hope it makes enough money to see a fourth one of these. I'm loving these films. I want to see more. Ken, please, give us more. I'm coming to you with my empty plate, begging for more. But I guess we'll see if that happens. If not, this, in a self-contained way, this is still a very good trilogy if we never get the fourth film. And I have some more film analyses coming at you. I know a lot of you guys subscribed for my film analysis, and I've got a couple coming up that I'm really proud of. Been working for a couple months on them, so I hope you appreciate them. I hope you like them. But until then, I will see you in the next one.